This is the Superpowered Mind podcast for inquiring individuals who are tired of the struggle for peace, happiness, and clarity. I'm Claire Diamond, ready to help you explore the principles of the mind, the self, and reality to unlock ultimate mental freedom. This podcast is the one to listen to if you're ready to experience the capabilities of the superpowered mind. Welcome to episode 3. The struggle and your unhappiness. You might have seen on social media a video of a young boy really struggling in the water. He looks terrified, he's splashing around, he's panicking. It really looks from the perspective of the camera that he's drowning, and it looks that the boy believes he's drowning. And then along comes one of his friends just walking through the water, smiling, relaxed, happy, and he grabs hold of this boy's flailing feet and puts them on the seabed. The boy stops panicking and stands up, and the water doesn't even come up past his thighs. He was completely safe. In his mind, he was drowning. And the terrible thing, really, about the power of the mind, that it is such that in waist-high water, a mind that believes it's drowning can create a situation in which that person is drowning, because it cuts off from all reality, all information that is here available. And what's required is someone to come along and show without any doubt whatsoever that what the mind is believing isn't true, isn't right. And really, that's what we're talking about through all of my podcasts, all of the work that we do. And it's fundamentally this struggle of being human, the suffering and the unhappiness, the sense of existential wrongness, really, for many of us, which comes from deep fear, deep need, deep insecurity, a deep sense of lack, and really a lot of shame at the heart of it, the shame of not being right, of not living up to expectations, of not comparing well to the people around us, of doing the wrong thing, of having habits and addictions that we can't control, emotions that we can't control. And this is the struggle of being human. And this is the theme, really, of the conversations that I have with people every day in all walks of life, all ages. And the struggle is across the board in all the different aspects of our day-to-day living. You know, it might be in relationships, it might be in money, it might be in our career, in our health, our appearance, in our depression, our anxiety, all sorts of ways this struggle appears. And it's my job, and it's what I hope to do through this podcast series, is to show the enormous power of the mind. I mean, the mind is our greatest asset, that human ability to create and to imagine, to conceptualize, to plan, to have an idea, representation of past and future. This is an enormous asset that we all have. And often I find that the individuals with the minds that are most creative, most imaginative, or the intellects that are strongest, or the problem-solving ability that is so much capacity, often it is the power of the mind that is just slightly misunderstood, that means these individuals suffer really, really intensely in their lives. And particularly when that is combined with a upbringing or a childhood in which the idea of self, the idea of what we are, developed in the context of confused adults around. So beliefs were acquired about lack and wrongness, about not being wanted, about not being loved, about not being good enough. And so the acquisition of that conditioning combined with a really powerful mind can mean that that conditioning is taken on by the mind as something that has to be solved without really questioning what it is or where it's come from. It's just believed, and it creates these problems in our day-to-day life. And really the fundamental core of the problem is that we're trying to find peace, happiness, freedom. We're trying to find the wholeness, really, that we know that we are. But the mind is trying to do that, trying to find all of that through these unquestioned beliefs about what we are, about what reality is, about what we need, what has to happen. And it can't do that. It can never solve that problem, because trying to solve the problem of what we think we are involves an unquestioned acceptance of all of those beliefs, of all of that conditioning, when really the problem is solved through the recognition of what the mind creates, through the understanding of that struggle of the mind. We can't solve the problem of not being good enough by doing whatever the conditioning and the beliefs tell us we have to do in order to be good enough, be successful in our job, earn a certain amount of money, have enough attention, have enough followers or likes, have enough clients, look beautiful or handsome enough. Those things are never going to solve the struggle, never going to solve that deep-seated sense of lack, because the solution and the problem are both coming from the same place. They're both coming from whatever conditioning was acquired. Do you see? And so this sets us on a treadmill, on a wild goose chase, a never-ending, desperate search to get the things that we think are going to finally make us okay, finally prove that we are whole and complete and we're good enough and we're loved enough and we're valuable enough. But really all that's happening is that search is pushing these things further and further away. Because if I think that I need a certain level of success in order to be good enough, in order to finally feel as though I have some right to exist, there will never be enough success. And the lens through which reality is perceived is only really going to be focused on failure, isn't it? Because the fleeting moment of success, a promotion, a recognition from the boss, a bonus, how long does that last? A few seconds until this sense of lack is kicking back in, and it's on to the next thing, the next proof that I'm good enough. And so the lens is always pushing away whatever it is that we think we need. So the struggle cannot end. This is the main message of this podcast. The struggle cannot end as long as that unquestioned idea, the unquestioned concept of what I think I am, remains in place. And that involves an unquestioned conviction of whatever narrative is going on is true, of whatever the mind creates is reality. And that's never the case. The idea of what I am is a creation of conditioning, of beliefs. And that includes the idea that what I am is some sort of separate entity within the body, moving the body, making words happen, making reactions happen, making emotions happen, making thoughts happen. But there isn't a a separate entity doing any of that. Those things are just happening as a result of what's been learned. It's a program running essentially. And what I am, really what I am, is the observation of that program in action. The conscious mind, when it really settles into its truth, into its actual reality, all it is presence. All it is consciousness, awareness. The identified mind, the believing mind, is a mind that is lost in its own conditioning, in its own belief system, its own narrative. And it's incredibly powerful. It's generating this internal film all the time. The presence that the mind really is hidden by that film. The film is actually inconsequential. The only truth is this aware space in which all experience is arising. But when the film is in operation, that looks real, and it looks like that has to be solved. But like the drowning boy, not really, no. It's just a belief system in operation. It doesn't need to be solved. It just needs to be recognized as a belief system. And feet come onto the seabed and there's no danger whatsoever. And the settled mind, the sane mind, really, which is a mind that doesn't believe anything, that just observes and allows then for the mind to become a learning space, an intuitive space, a sensory space in which the body and the mind are operating in actual reality, not in the film of reality, but in actual reality. And that's freedom, that's mental freedom, that's a whole mind, this powerful superpower mind returning to its birthright, which is infinite potential. And so the big question really is, how does that happen? How do these brilliant minds that have become so lost in their own creations settle into that truthful, authentic, sane space of pure presence that is always there? It's just hidden from moment to moment, hidden by the intensity and drama of the film of self, really, isn't it? The film of the survival of self. Well, what I say to all of my clients, everyone who does my courses, is that spirituality really, and I see this day in, day out, isn't about withdrawing into some ivory tower, isn't about I'm better than all of you because I'm studying reality. No, spirituality, sanity, really is about moving deeper into the world, particularly where there is confrontation and suffering and struggle, with the question, what is going on here? What is this about? What is being protected? So say for example, we have problems with colleagues, or we're reluctant to go to a meeting. We feel that we're being talked over, or we're not getting our views across very well, or people are better than us when we're a bit inferior. Whatever it is, that suffering, that struggle, which is really revolving around this idea of me, this me is under threat. And that's always, that's a gift for us all, that realization, okay, there's something at stake here around the identity. There's no physical danger. It's just the identity of me is being confronted. I would say always go into that meeting with an inquiring mind, asking the question, what's actually real here? What's really going on? What seems to be under attack? What is this vulnerability? And having those emotions, having whatever is there to be had, is a way of bringing the whole system into reality. It becomes sane. And now this super-powered human mind isn't whirring around the idea of self anymore, isn't obsessed with its own narrative, its own defense system. It's actually in reality, actually dealing with the topic that's coming up in the meeting, you know? Amazing. We realize how rare it can be that the entire attention is focused on the topic under discussion instead of in whatever beliefs and thoughts are going on in the mind about the self and about threats to the self. So always go deeper in, move towards the areas where the identity is being confronted, really to see what's actually happening. And at the same time, feeling these emotions that are playing out, because these are emotions from childhood. These are emotions that weren't available, weren't able to have been processed at the time that the belief system was being formed. And the reason for the suffering, for the struggle, is that what is happening is a projection of things that were learned from that childhood. And so the process is so sane and healing and in tune, really, with what is required, what's required right now, what has to be processed, what's there to be felt and understood and realized. And that's the way this whole system comes more and more into alignment with reality. The belief system is so powerful. The mind is incredible. When it's realized that everything that is experienced within the mind is a creation, is not actual reality. It's a mental creation established through all the filters of belief, all the filters of conditioning, then that's really a breakthrough. It's a breakthrough in terms of a system aligning with reality, aligning with the actual power of the mind. And now we don't have to solve those problems ever. And in fact, always it's the attempt to solve them that fixes them more and more in place. Now everything becomes, all suffering, all struggle becomes an invitation to a better understanding of the mind. And that's why we're here, all of us. Thank you for listening to Superpowered Mind with me, Claire Diamond. If you want extra support in the exploration of your mind, download our exclusive subliminal recording, especially for podcast listeners, on bit.ly/podcast subliminal.